Welcome to the Across the Bar podcast, where we talk about how today's headlines are important for you at work. My name is Peter Rahbar, your first call on legal issues.
I'm Laura Brounstein. I should be your first call on comms and content. And Peter had a great idea for us to do a standalone episode on what?
Starting your own business, the do's and don'ts, some helpful tips. And I wish I could take credit for the idea, but actually one of our listeners asked if we would do this, and I thought it was a great idea, and I passed it along to you. And as two, entrepreneurs, we're pretty excited to do it. So yes. Let's have some fun with it. So obviously, we're both fans of the concept.
Yeah. So I would say my general happiness increased at least 30%, maybe more, when I became my own boss.
30%?
At least.
More? Mine is more.
Like a lot. Like I am so much happier having clients, multiple clients, and my own shop rather than at this moment working.
And how long have you been doing that?
On and off since 22.
Wow. Okay. So I am entering my ninth year of having my own law practice, breaking away from big corporate life. So
what made you make the decision?
Well, one thing, which is a reason that a lot of people start their own businesses, is a belief in their own network and their own abilities, and having a skill set that, can be a foundation for a solo business. So for a lawyer, lawyers actually have a pretty low barrier in terms of cost to starting up their own business. So for me, I had really strong belief in my own network. I also don't like being told what to do, so I want to be my own boss. I come from a family.
That was unclear to me before this.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
Yeah. And I come from a family of entrepreneurs, so it runs in my blood, I think. And I saw a business opportunity.
Was your dad an entrepreneur?
Yes, my dad is. My brother is. So I saw an opportunity in the area of law that I practice in, which is representing executives and other high-level management individuals, not having quality representation available to them. And so I switched sides, as they say, in the industry and started this practice 9 years ago, and here we are.
I guess the first time you and I were in contact was 2019, so 6 years. Makes
sense.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Mitch Prom.
Yeah, exactly. She's fantastic. And it sort of leads me to one of my first tips, and one of the first things we were going to talk about, sort of the basics in getting your business started, is like figuring out what your business is going to be, right? And so for me,
you totally just stole my thing.
Yeah.
Oh my God! Right before we started, I said I think that's the first thing.
Well,
and you just swooped in.
You were right.
Also, for people confused, we're shooting this on December 23rd, so I am indulging in holiday snacks and a drink, even though this is an evergreen episode.
So tell us a little bit about figuring out what your business is going to be, Laura. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, as you said, Peter, the most important thing to think about is, what do I want people to pay me for? And who do I want those people to be? Like, who are my clients going to be? Who will pay me? Or is there an alternative revenue stream? Like, am I getting grants? Like, how will this create revenue? And what will people actually ask me to do? And what will I spend my time doing? And these are important things because you could be a comms firm and do any number of things. But if you know in your heart of hearts that what you are best at is like pitching media stories, then like you got to, I think, understand what is your point of difference that you do that there is white space in the market for, just like you said. Would you say that was part of how you determine your business, to say, like, what's there white space for? What do I like to do?
Yeah, exactly. Like, where is the need? Mm-hmm. And I would say, to add to this, spend as much time in your prior job as possible trying to figure that out. Like, don't leave and then figure it out. I would say use the time you have while you're working, being paid, maybe whether it's early mornings, late nights, whatever it may be. Use that time to like workshop some ideas, get them on paper, test them on some people, pick a few people you trust.
Early morning or late nights. I think you should, if possible, and it isn't always possible, allot 6 months for reconnecting with all of your contacts. Like, give yourself 6 months of reaching out to people, hearing what they have to say when you are not asking them for anything.
Right. That's good advice.
Listening.
Yeah.
Listening is always a good thing.
Yeah. By the time I focused on this idea, I probably did about 6 to 8 months of testing it on a few people who I really trusted. And to me, I wasn't going to
Anyone you want to give a
blast it
shout
on.
out to that gave you good advice at that time?
I mean, there were a couple of people. They know who they are because I thanked them repeatedly. But I decided not to go too broad with it because I didn't want 100 different people telling me their thoughts. I wanted like 6 to 10 people who I really trusted, who were successful, who brought different perspectives. And when they all just sort of lined up behind me saying this was a good idea, I knew it was right. And then it was just figuring out timing and logistics, etc.
And some of those logistics, I think it's important to point out, you have to think about how you are going to pay. If your business is an idea that will not be profitable on day one, how will you pay your bills until it's profitable? So, Peter and I are both lucky that a lot of the work we do is super lightweight. There's no overhead or very little overhead other than our vast educations.
Our computers,
Yeah,
our vast
exactly. But there's
supercomputers.
not like we don't need inventory to do our work. So you can accelerate to making money pretty quickly. But when I started consulting for the first time, I did not realize that consulting clients do not pay you with the same discipline and regularity that one gets a corporate paycheck. And that was a huge awakening for me when I first started consulting. Because it was like, I got all these clients, but then when I went to go pay my, at that point, rent for the first month, I was like, wait, no one's
Right.
paying me yet.
Yeah. So, after you decide your business, you got to think about your name for your business, how you're going to
Don't
market yourself.
overthink that, though. Don't overthink
Well,
it.
I would just make one suggestion, which is make sure you check domain registrations, IP registration, so that, when your business is successful, you actually,
So what should
you
you go
know,
to? GoDaddy? How do you do a trademark search? Like, tell us how to do those.
yeah, I mean, domain searches are done through, and then business corporation searches are done within different state databases. IP searches, you can hire a lawyer to do that, pretty quickly. But make sure you search it, get it all set up, get your business incorporated in whatever state you're in. I would suggest hiring a lawyer to do all those things for you. Have a lawyer and an accountant ready to go. Have accounts ready to go, so when you get paid, the money actually has a place to go to. I mean, if you start your good practices from the beginning, you're doing yourself a huge favor. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I talk to who are like, I haven't registered my company. It's a year in. I don't have separate bank accounts. I don't have separate credit cards. Like, you got to get that stuff going from the outside. It sounds so basic, but it's really important.
I will say, I did my LLC on LegalZoom, and I'm sorry, Peter.
Yeah,
And
I can't advocate that. So.
no, it wasn't a good idea. I mean, I missed things because I didn't have anyone talking me through it. I was just sort of blindly being like, what does LegalZoom say I should do next?
Right. Yeah, so you're going to need to register your company, get a taxpayer ID, get bank account set up, all that, and before you do anything, frankly.
Yeah.
That's what should be done. And also insurance, I would say, depending on what you're doing. Like, I'm a lawyer, I need malpractice insurance. Most contractors need general business practices liability insurance. Some
don't have
clients
those
require
things.
that.
Should I have those things?
See? This is good we're talking about it.
Wait, I don't have any of those things. Should I?
Yeah, I mean, you may want to have a business practices liability policy. You may want to have a cyber policy, which, protects you in case of a data breach with clients. It depends on what your business is, but those are important things to consider also before you get started.
How much money do you think people should ballpark or give a range, put aside for these legal housekeeping, setting up shop moments?
Oh, I mean, that could vary depending. But it should just be, a few $1,000s. I mean, not a ton,
Okay.
But I think if you get everything set up right, it depends on, it's going to depend on the insurance, and then it's going to depend on the overhead things you need. So like I didn't need an office right away, but the office is typically the biggest expense for startups like ours, that don't require supercomputers and chips. And
But
whatever.
these days,
Yeah.
these days, I think less people feel like they need an office.
For sure, for sure. So those are just like super basic things you need to figure out, administratively. And I would say also like in that list is like a contract template for your clients. All your contracts should be
Well, I will
in writing.
say, don't overthink it again, but come up with a logo. If you want all of your communication, if you want to seem professional, like you're a real business, you want a logo that will show up next to your name on LinkedIn, that will be on your contracts, that will be at the bottom of your emails. You want to start to try to create some brand equity and identity for whatever you're going to be building. And when I say don't overthink it, you can change it. Something is better than nothing. And in this moment in time, there are so many good AI options to create something. So, Peter and I were lucky enough to have the benefit of your brilliant friend whose company
Maria Quinchon,
yes,
Mammoth.
created
yeah,
our
of course.
logo. But and having a professional makes a big difference. But if you don't have an option for that, just make something. It looks crappy to have no logo next to your name on LinkedIn.
I agree with you on the logo, and you mentioned LinkedIn also, and LinkedIn's probably going to be your number one marketing tool, wouldn't you say?
You want to think about, okay, what's my business going to be? Who are my clients going to be? How will it make money? Quick, make a logo. Again, do not overthink it. There is plenty of time to upgrade your logo. And then you want to think about, I think maybe next, what is my social media strategy going to be? Or what is my discoverability strategy going to be? How am I going to find and engage clients and gain authority and share of voice in my industry or expertise?
Right.
And
How did you do that early on?
I leaned in, I think I did a good job, not at many things, but of leaning into what each platform is good for. I say a lot, like, no one on LinkedIn wants to know what you had for lunch. Do you know what I mean? Like, and
Corporate
no
slop
one
balls.
on Instagram wants to know the exacts of your, like, life cycle marketing epiphany. Know your platform and what it wants and what it's good for. Like, what goes, you were saying the other day that you created some marketing tools for the podcast that were specific to platform. And it was interesting how specific it was, right?
Yes, absolutely. But I think as a professional starting your own business, LinkedIn is going to be your best friend for a little while. And what you should...
What you're doing. If you are a wedding planner
Right.
or an
That's true.
organizer starting your own business, Instagram is actually where that's going to be at.
Yeah. Well, both. I mean, either way, I think you need to understand. And I think a lot of people don't understand the power of LinkedIn and like all the tools available within it. And there are a lot of tools, and you need to make sure you're fully aware of them. They're constantly finding new things to feature. Like recently, they've been featuring posts that have longer narrative forms in them. And so, I was talking with a friend about that who has his own business, and I suggested it to him, and he's like, you remember when you told me I should write longer posts? I said, yeah, did it work for you? And he was like, it changed my whole LinkedIn presence. So, you need to know.
I'm going to try that.
Yeah, you need to know, what the algorithm emphasizes. You need to, get the professional gold, whatever it is, and, fully utilize it. But like for me, my marketing is not really like, pasting my firm name on billboards and subway ads.
Right?
Mine is more word of mouth. It's like reminding people that I exist. And part of it is becoming a, thought leader in my space. And so if you look at my LinkedIn posts, they're usually my press appearances and then my thoughts on, employment law related issues and this podcast. And I try to keep that pretty tight on LinkedIn. If you look at my Instagram, it's going to be about Negronis and, and dinners and travel.
So you
and
do
sports.
the same thing. You're
Very
leaning
different.
into what the platform is good for.
Yeah, exactly.
I also think, as soon as you start to think you want to do something, think about who else is in the space and start to follow them on every platform. Learn from your cohort. Like, long gone are the days where we walled ourselves off from the competition. Like, lean in, see what your cohort is doing, see what is happening, what people are engaging with. Learn from other people before you actually do your own thing.
Right. Yeah, see where they are, what they're saying. I mean, for me, lawyers don't really post that much on social media because they don't want to piss off clients, and then the stuff they post is pretty boring. So I feel like as my own boss, I could take a little more liberty with what I say and maybe get a little more attention. And, whenever I see colleagues at cocktail parties or whatever, they always talk about my LinkedIn posts. And so that's good. I know it's working and I can continue doing it. But also, like, if one platform is working for you really well, it doesn't mean that others can't as well. Like, I've talked to some clients recently who have big, Substacks, Instagram presence, and they have no LinkedIn presence. And I'm like, you're just
leaving money on the table.
Leaving money on the table, and so you got to think about those things, where you want to be, how you want to market yourself, what you're comfortable with. Also, you have to be comfortable with it, because if it's your business, it's you, and that's super important. Well, talking about money, I think an important thing is also pricing and how you price yourself. And so,
how did you figure that out?
Well, lawyers have several different pricing models. Hourly rates, obviously, flat fees, retainers. My business also has a contingency option for certain cases. So it was research. There was a lot of market research, and, research obviously is easier than ever now with AI tools, et cetera, about what you should do as much research as you can into what, average rates are for the type of work you do. You should not be afraid to ask colleagues who do the same thing what they charge. Hypothetically, ask them to give you ranges if they're comfortable doing that. And I will just say this in general, like, you should not be afraid to ask people questions about their own businesses, because they want to help you generally.
And most people are actually open to talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, my view is, like, the world wants to support people who start their own businesses, like, in general. And, so you should not be afraid to say, hey, how much do you charge for the same work I'm about to do? Just to get a sense, and never undersell yourself, I would say. Like, you always want to start higher and work down, as opposed to starting low and trying to work up.
Yes.
So if someone balks at my rate, and I really want to do the work, we can talk about a rate that works. And if I'm super busy and 100% committed and someone wants me to give them a discount, I feel free in saying, nope, I don't have to.
I will also say, when in doubt, just back out the numbers. Like, think about what you made to do the same work as a salary and back out the numbers to, okay, if you divide that salary by 52 weeks and, factor in benefits, it doesn't give you a hard and fast number, but it gives you a little bit of a guide of how others have valued, how your talents have been valued by the market.
Right.
And it's just, when in doubt, that's an easy way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, and it's hard to put a value on your experience, your knowledge, your reputation. I mean, there are cases where I can make a phone call and it will have a different value than just some random lawyer making a phone call, because I've dealt with...
This is Peter Rahbar.
Yeah, exactly. That's usually what I say when I call. But that kind of stuff, like, sometimes you have to walk your clients through it. But in the end, they will understand and hopefully appreciate the value proposition you're giving them. But just never make yourself the cheapest option. Like, I always give that advice to people. Like, you don't want to, you don't want your selling point is like, I'm the cheapest.
You need to get some fast clients. Like, when you decide to start your business, if you are doing that without a built-in client, just take some work. Get used to doing it. Yeah. Or say to a friend, can I do something barter for you just so I get used to the experience of doing this as a consultant? I did that with a lot of people as I was getting, like, my sea legs, to say, like, I need help with this. Can I help you with this? Barter is a great way to go through life. To have lean into your people and what they know. Okay, what about the thing on the
I would say I wouldn't do barter necessarily, but like you need to be appreciative to people who are good to you. So if there are people who send me like a ton of referrals and then ask me to do something that doesn't take that long, I will not charge them for it. You know,
you didn't charge
and
me for
that's
something last week. It was very nice.
yeah. There you go.
There you
So
go.
you know, there's that.
All right, administration is what I'm worst at. So
Really.
talk to me. You're cute.
Well,
Talk,
based on what you said before, just not too surprised, I guess. But,
talk to me about what you need to think about ahead of time.
well, as I said earlier, every engagement you have should have a contract. That's super important. And in cities like New York City, it's mandatory that independent contractors have contracts for engagements that they perform. Like that is what should be happening if you're engaging with companies. So look, you need to, sometimes you're not going to be dealing with the most professional people, or you're going to be dealing with people who want to catch a break or negotiate with you. And you just need to have protect your rights, protect yourself. So I would say pay a lawyer to do a template for you at the outset. Don't
Smart.
AI it. Get a good template that you could just change every time you have an engagement.
How do you find, obviously anyone listening to this should just obviously call you.
Yeah,
But
obviously.
how does one find a good lawyer, honestly?
Ask the people, who do what you do, who they use, or ask your accountant who they would recommend, or, things like that. I mean, you could also do searches on Google for lawyers, or directories that have of lawyers like Martindale, Hubbell, and Chambers, et cetera. But the best way to do it is get a personal referral from someone. Hey, you started your business a couple of years ago. Did you use a lawyer to do that? Or I would say if you have a lawyer for one purpose, like let's say, I've represented clients in employment matters who've come to me and said, hey, I need an estate planning lawyer, or I need a divorce lawyer. Do you have a referral for me? Like lawyers are very good, obviously the best, I think, sources for,
That makes good sense.
lawyer referrals. So, but you should have contracts, and you should have, we talked previously about banking accounts, et cetera. And part of your contracts, when you go into engagements, you should be thinking about and talking with your clients about expectations. So like how much time, what the deliverables are, what the timing is. All those things are super important. Your ability to do other work, that's super important.
Yes.
So those are where you could do the work. Like those kind of things should all be documented in a contract. Super important.
Also, don't forget the fact that you are going to need health insurance. And if you have an opportunity to take COBRA from your old job, which is where you have an ability to pay into the plan that your employer was previously paying for you to be part of, do that while you figure things out. And then at the moment, you can still go on, Affordable Care Act, Open Exchange account.
At the moment.
And find healthcare. It's unclear what's going to happen with that, but read the news.
And I would say, once you start an engagement and sign that contract, like you should have a reliable method for tracking your time and tracking your expenses on every matter that you're working on. So there are services you could subscribe to for lawyers. That's super important. So like I subscribe to a service that does that for me and generates
How does it
bills.
work?
And you enter the time you're working on, you enter the matter, you enter the time you're working on, and, it could generate bills for you. It could track, revenue. It could give you financial reports, all that stuff. And so there are different versions of that for different businesses. Or, if you're just going to do spreadsheets or whatever, but just make sure it's reliable, it's regular, you don't fall behind. It's really important to not only have that for clients if they ask for it, but also for your future planning purposes on how you're going to price out work going down the line. Data is super helpful in doing that.
Great points. How do you think, I work with a lot of partners on projects, and I have brought on contractors, but I have never hired an employee because that doesn't work for the model I have been building that is kind of lightweight and nimble. How do you think about that? Whether or not you should take on an employee? Are there numbers? Like, how do you make those decisions?
Well, I also have not hired a full-time employee. I've hired people to come on for particular projects. And I would say, you got to make a pretty fundamental decision if you want to expand your business beyond yourself. I mean, because you're also taking on, the cost and the management time, et cetera. So to me, it's always been, in my business, would hiring someone else like essentially pay for itself? Like, would I be able to pay for itself with additional business or freeing me up from whatever that person would be doing? Do I have enough other stuff to do, that's valuable, or more valuable than the work that my new employees can do?
So my friend Shoshana Hecht, who's a great career and business corporate coach, when I was starting my own business, said to me, stop feeling bad about the parts of this that you're not good at, and think of that as an opportunity to hire some help in the things you're not good at so you can lean more into the things you're good at. And that was so liberating for me, at least, to be like, oh, all right, I'm going to hire a remote assistant. I hired somebody from Squared Away, a great company that trains military spouses to be remote assistants.
That's cool.
And it's, at that time, I don't know what the fee is now, it was $250 for 5 hours a month. And that was exactly what I needed at that point to help me with scheduling and basic organization. And it made a huge difference to me and really let me build a client base in the very beginning.
Right. I mean, I've brought on people to do some of the stuff I just don't like doing.
Yeah.
Is basically the same thing.
I think understanding that that's okay. Like, that is what having your own business is a big part of this. Like, I felt bad about it in the beginning. I was like, oh, I should just push myself to be good at all of it.
Right. I mean, there's always that pressure to say, well, I should know this or whatever, so let me spend the time. But that doesn't always make sense.
No.
I mean, not when there's people out there who can be hired as sort of like a plug-in solution who are good. I mean, I have so many former colleagues from my law firm days who like do this work for law firms, and they're great. Like, if there's some form of heavy lifting that I need help with, I know I can turn to them and they would be great. Now, also in certain businesses, this need may be covered by AI right now, and I know that you and your business use AI for certain things.
Yes. It's made me such a better solopreneur.
Yeah. I don't use it as much, but,
the biggest thing for me is recording meetings and having transcripts of every meeting. That, as someone who is juggling on good times, multiple clients and responsibilities, having a written record of all of my conversations with clients is so helpful to keep track of like what I need to deliver, what I need to be, focused on.
So you need to evaluate your business and what works best for you. But I would say generally, if you're intending to stay solo, you're going to try and stay solo as much as possible. There's so many resources now available to you.
It's easier than it ever was before.
Yeah, 100%.
Also, figure out where you work best. Like, for the most part, I do work best at home, and there are certain work I do best at my dining room table and certain work I like to do on the couch. And then there's certain work I like to, once in a while, go someplace else where I have nothing personal to just, like, bang something out. I have friends who know that they cannot get work done in their personal space. They need to go to an office someplace. And I think you want to kind of pay attention to that in the beginning and figure that out for yourself, where you will get the best work done.
And also, some clients may require you to work certain places. Like, you may have to go to their offices, or you may have to have a secure location. I mean, those are things you need to figure out at the outset and document, so if you're not planning to be on site at all, that should be documented in an agreement so that they don't change that on you down the line. And so that's really important. And also, if you're going to use other people to do the work, that should be in an agreement too. Like, an agreement typically should allow you to have
subcontract.
The right to subcontract.
Yes,
exactly.
That's a really good piece of advice. Also, do your own testing, message testing. Like when you realize what work you want to be doing, what you want to call the company, also test out with people in your life who are not in your industry and those who are in your industry, your bullet, your like 3-line sales pitch that you would put in a text or an email. And give everybody like 2 options and let them pick which one they like best. And most people are happy to answer a question like that and happy to be helpful.
Yeah, I would say, again, I said it before, people have always been so generous, to me, and I've seen it with others. I've told people this, and then they've come back to me and said, you were totally right. Like started telling people I was starting my own business, and the like help, which is just like came gushing in, the referrals and whatnot. So, it's not an easy thing to do, and it takes courage. And by the way, it's not for everybody. I think
that's okay.
We didn't talk about at the outset. Like, there are some people who, as smart and talented as they are, they can never have their own business because they like the trappings of corporate life. They like the regular paycheck. They don't like negotiating, whatever it may be. That's fine. We don't need you here. That's okay. There's places for you too in big corporate.
Also,
but,
no decision is final. Like, I have popped in and out of full-time jobs several times during my period of having consulting clients. Like, consulting clients have turned into full-time projects several times.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you got to be flexible. Certainly, like, there are some things that I do now in my practice that I never thought I'd be doing.
Like what?
Like I represent a lot of hedge fund portfolio managers. If you told me 9 years ago I'd be doing that, I'd be like, you're crazy. My whole network is in media and sports, and that's probably not likely.
Yeah.
So, but now that's a huge part of my practice. And it's a lot of fun and I love it. So, you have to be flexible and ready to take the turns.
And you have to remember that when you own your own business, the buck stops with you. So you have to own anything that you say or put out there on social media or elsewhere in the world. That's on you. There's no one to hide behind. Right. So remember that as you are kind of representing yourself out in the world, both digitally and physically.
Yeah. And I would say as sort of the last point here, it's also important to set boundaries and take care of yourself because no one else is going to be doing that. So, taking time off is very hard, but you need to find a way to do it. You need to find weeks, where you just are not going to work. Not like half work or quarter work. Yeah.
To bookend your work day. Like, I had a period where I would take a walk every day after my last meeting.
Oh. That sounds very relaxing.
It was so healthy. It didn't last long, but it was so healthy. I would take a 10-minute walk outside at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, before I was 7 o'clock, whenever it was, before whatever I was doing that evening, to like create a bookmark for the day. And it was so healthy.
Yeah. Well, I totally endorse that. And
now, like, I make a cup of tea. Like, whenever I start working, I have like my cup of caffeine for the day with me.
Ready to
Marks beginning of the workday.
Right. But I think time off is a really important one because that's hard to like navigate and you feel a lot of pressure to be there for your clients. But if you tell them you're going on vacation, they'll understand. I mean, they take vacations too. They get it. So so it's important to set boundaries, protect yourself, protect your mental health, your physical health, because like if you're sick, you're out. There's no one's going to cover for you. Yeah. So those are all important things.
And also do a solid for someone else so you have that goodwill out there. Obviously. Like when I broke my shoulder recently, there were a couple things I couldn't do. And I was very easily able to call on friends and colleagues to be like, oh, can you pinch hit for me on this? Because I can't lift my arm. And you want to create goodwill.
Yeah.
Don't
be nice.
Be nice.
Be nice.
Right. Peter, be nice.
Yeah, we're going to continue being nice. We're nice people.
We are. All right. Let us know if there is another topic that you would like us to deep dive on.
Yeah, so we're not pretending to answer every question there is about starting your own business, but those are some helpful tips. I think some things I wish I
things
would have
that helped
known
me
before I started.
And Peter was a huge help to me. So get an employment lawyer team.
Oh yeah. Yeah, hit me up
Obviously.
for questions, obviously.
Yeah.
So we hope you enjoyed this and find it helpful. And thank you once again for listening or watching across the
Thank
bar.
you, Sadie Rahbar, for producing.
Thank you, Sadie, for producing, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.